And good morning, everybody. Rise and shine. Glad you're here. My name is Bryan Armentrout with the Food Leadership Group. And every Friday at 8 a.m. Mountain Time, 10 a.m. Eastern, we host the Food Safety Chat Live. So pull up a chair. One of the things that you're going to notice here with this chat is this is not a compendium of lectures of where we're going to tell you what you need to do and all these type of things. This is meant to be a conversation, to share information, because as we all know, food safety, not a point of competition. This is something that we're all in together, and consumers judge us accordingly. So we need to help each other out in this aspect. And that's part of what's really fun about my job in consulting, is working with different companies. And of course, bringing experts on to have a chat around this, such as Elena Montoya. How are you today, ma'am?
I'm doing well, Bryan. Thank you so much for having me on Food Safety Chat Live this morning. I'm honored to be here.
Oh, absolutely. And this is what's fun about the chat, is that we have guests on the chat who are regulars contributing to the community. So this is an opportunity for people to, if they're interested, to share a little bit more. And I am sure by the end of this, Elena, you're going to say what every guest on this chat says is, gosh, that was a lot of fun. Because it really is. It's a nice way to start off your Friday off on the right foot, get energized for the next week of food safety. So it's all fun.
Definitely a lot of food for thought over the weekend and inspiration for the week to come.
Absolutely. And so part of our ritual here on the chat is, so Elena and I are neighbors. I am in Loveland, Colorado, which is north of Denver, kind of up by Fort Collins. Where are you at, ma'am?
I'm in Denver, just actually outside of Denver, Southeast Aurora. So we are neighbors, and I love that.
Yes, and it's been pretty cold here. It was, but today it's crazy. So I checked the weather this morning, Elena. So here in Loveland, 50 degrees today.
Yeah, it's going to be a gorgeous day, Bryan. And also, happy Valentine's to everybody today.
You too. Yeah, I ordered some coffee, and it came with a free little sampling of chocolates. And so that worked out really well. So the people at Nespresso are very good at marketing, evidently, because now I had a nice box of chocolates to give my wife. So win-win.
That's adorable. I'm sure she'll enjoy those.
Yeah. So as everybody's coming in here, please let us know where you're at in the chat as well. And if you have questions, we will work those into the conversation as we come along. So, of course, with the chat, one of the things here that we love to do as well is join us for a sip of your favorite beverage. Cheers.
Cheers.
Good morning, Tim. Tim's home. That's a good thing. So Tim's been busy. If you've been following him on LinkedIn, I'm jealous of Tim. He is a handyman. He can build stuff. He's finishing his basement, and he's getting all this in between all of his traveling with his job. And I'm not very good at that. Not very good at that at all.
Tim's amazing. I don't know how he fits it all in myself.
And all his family stuff. It's like, my goodness. Morgan, hi, nice to see you. Morgan, good to see you again. Guys, that's what's so cool about the chat here as well, Elena, is that part of the challenge of what we do in food safety and quality assurance is you're working for a company and you get kind of boxed in. Right? You see the same people, maybe go to a conference or two a year if your boss is generous, and you're caught. You don't get to look outside and see how things are being done. So that's part of what we're trying to do here on the chat as well, and that's kind of our theme for today as well too. But before we get to that, everybody's favorite, maybe, I don't know, the dad joke.
My favorite.
Are you ready, Elena, for the dad joke?
I'm ready. Give it to us, Bryan.
Where do rainbows go when they've been bad? To Prism. So they have time to reflect on what they've done.
Oh my.
That's a two for dad joke. I love it. Because you hear the prism part and you're like, okay, that's good. And then you hear the reflect and you're like, oh, you got me twice.
It's a 2-for-1. I think your next book is going to have to be a book of dad jokes, Bryan.
Oh, and there's two guys on YouTube who just absolutely squeal at their own jokes. And they're hilarious because this one guy just can't control himself. And just watching those, right? I watch those and laugh. My wife is kind of like, okay. They're awesome. Morgan liked the joke. Tim is laughing. Good, 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 good. Um, so with that, one of the rituals on the chat here, Elena, that we like to do, excuse me, especially with new guests, is tell us a little bit about you. So who are you and what do you do?
My name is Elena Montoya. I'm a food safety professional, and I started my food safety career 7 years ago in manufacturing and distribution. I also have experience in storage and distribution, and this is actually my third career. My first career was as an residential interior designer until 2008. The recession hit, and that really made me start looking at recession-proof industries. I started thinking, well, everybody has to eat. But naturally, with no experience in industrial settings, I started at the very bottom. I was loading cases onto carts and onto trailers on a dock. A little while later, had the opportunity to become a sanitation coordinator or supervisor. And this is where my food safety passion really ignited, inspiring me to grow to become a sanitation manager. I'm also the co-founder of 5280 Food Safety. We work with many different size brands, essentially working to provide the documentation that they have gaps for. Sometimes they may not have a SSOP or they need document review and revisions, and we do a lot of that work within the industry.
Nice, nice. It's kind of, well, number one, right? This is why your background looks so amazing, right? Is your technical training, right? It's set up perfectly. I was admiring this before we came on the show, and
Thank you.
a couple of good lessons out of that, right? Is number one is you never know where you end up in life, and finding that passion and then saying, "Ooh, this is for me," right? And realizing that food safety is your calling, and I love your background as well too, because that's what makes a good food safety professional too, is being able to look at things from different perspectives and say, okay, how does this look from manufacturing? How does this look from sanitation? How does this look from marketing and sales? How are these other different groups interacting within the company? And those skill sets can only help you.
Absolutely.
Wow, Bangkok, Thailand, amazing. Welcome. Let me see. Good to see you as well. Wow, we're getting some really cool stuff. So, Bangkok, Thailand, interesting town. I've been there before. Hot. Oh my goodness. And we were there in spring, and it was still hot. And it was funny because locals were walking around. My wife and I were dying. We were so hot, and there were locals who were walking around wearing sweaters. And I was just like, wow. It's kind of amazing. Right? You hear, like people from Florida, if they come, to Colorado like us, and like, oh, it's so cold here. And we're like, what are you talking about? We're wearing shorts. This is awesome.
But Brian, it's actually scientific that your blood does thin when you're closer to sea level. So naturally, your body's not as adjusted to those colder temperatures. So 40 to 50 degrees, even 60 will feel very cold for a Floridian.
Oh, interesting. So you learn something on the chat every week. I just learned something. So then, yeah, so it's better than for dissipating heat with more surface area. So makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense. So let's dive in, guys. We got a ton to go over here. South Africa. Wow, this is amazing. And Duncan's, and we are all around the world this week. This is amazing. I love it.
I love the global community.
Yes, and that's what we're building here, and that's really the topic for today. And we titled this "How to Be a Food Safety Influencer." And the word influencer, after I wrote that, Elena, is it's a little loaded, right? You think of like the 20-something girls doing their makeup shows and going, yeah, right? And that's not what we mean by influencing. What does influencing mean for you?
Bryan, I think you said it best in your book, New Manager Mindset, that to influence others and get things done, you must listen to their needs first and then communicate yours. And if anybody hasn't read Bryan's book, The New Manager Mindset, I highly recommend it. There's a lot to learn, and you don't have to be in leadership to apply the lessons in this book. So it's a worthy read.
Thank you. And this was one of the books that you reviewed in your book club too, right?
That's correct. But also reflecting on influence, for me, influencing is how I connect to people in an
Yeah.
authentic manner.
Yeah. And part of this too, right? There's stereotypes with influencers that they're brash and they've got these big personalities and they're in your face, Mr. Beast on YouTube and these guys. But that's not true. Right? You don't have to be the super flashy, loud, gregarious salesperson to be an influencer. I remember Elena at White Wave. I had a member of my team for supplier management, very quiet, very soft spoken. But when he said something, everybody would go, "Oh, wow, yeah, right." So whenever Brent talked, people would listen because they knew what he had to say was significant. And it was. And so he was able to manipulate, that's not the right word. He was able to manage his area and get things done that needed to be done and not be confrontational about it, which is super important for somebody who's dealing with suppliers. So he was able to work with them and negotiate with them and show them why we needed things the way we needed done, the way they were, and helping to influence them to see our position. But to your point, which is a great one, he was empathetic and he understood where they were coming from as well. I think that works really well for influence.
I think that's a wonderful point, Brian. When you're working together and you're collaborating, it becomes a win-win, and
Mhm.
everybody is invested in that process. And to really create change, you have to have the investment of the people around you in order to really motivate and become more effective in food safety.
Yeah, and the idea that you have to have, and you made a very good point that I want to emphasize, win-win. This is not, it doesn't, a lot of people think with these type of activities that, okay, I need to win, which means you need to lose. No, that's not true. So back to
Mhm.
that supplier example, if I'm getting good product that makes me happy, that is getting the plants what they need, the supplier is getting paid on time, there's not complaints and hassle to deal with, and we're able to build that relationship and become partners, and both sides understand what's needed. Perfect. That's exactly what you need. And conversely, it's also setting up a mechanism to say, if you have a supplier that's not quite meeting what you need, to be able to explain to them why you're doing this. Because especially in the world of procurement, if you're on the purchasing side of things, you're a supplier. Let's say I'm supplying you stuff, Elena, and you're being really tough on me. I'm going to push back. And
Mhm.
there's also the idea that, oh, okay, they're trying to get one over on me, so I'm not going to let that happen, and you end up in this big fight, and it doesn't have to be that.
To that point, Brian, there is a big difference between influencing and manipulating others. Again, it goes back to that authenticity and being genuine, like Tim said, transparent in your interactions. And oftentimes, when you're trying to butter somebody up so you can get what you want, and they sense that. People recognize
Oh,
that right off the bat. You don't talk to somebody all year, and then it's Christmas time and you want a big present, and you're like, "Hey, what are you getting me?" A big fat
mhm.
nothing.
Yeah, car dealerships, right? That's the stereotypical, example of somebody who's trying to get one over on you, right? You walk into a car dealership, the flashy sales guy, hey, yeah, how you doing? And it's like, what's it going to take to get you in a car today? Nothing. I'm just here to look at something. Hey, we can get you low monthly payments. No. Let's sit down with the manager and we'll work out it. No, and then you just leave, right? And the sales guy's like, oh, I need to do that more of that next time. I need to rustle them to the ground. No, that makes for a very difficult life. And so Tim works in sales. I'd be very curious to see his opinions here as well too. Is a big piece of that is and that influencing piece that we're talking about today is saying, hey, this Tim guy that I see on LinkedIn all the time, I like him. What does he do?
Mhm.
Right? And then that brings you further down that path, and you reach out to Tim and say, "Hey, I'm interested in learning more about your products. What can you tell me?" And you're going to get a good deal. Right? You know that you're going to get a straight up answer because he is consistent, and we know something about him. He's just not a face on a computer screen. We get the feeling that even though we haven't met him in person, that we know him, and that's really cool, and that's super smart.
I think that's one of the things that makes Tim really great at what he does, leading teams and being in charge of his company. But the fact that he shares those personal moments of his life with his family and his kids and his wife and the home baked cinnamon rolls, you feel like you know Tim, whether, like you said, or you've met him or not. He's
Yeah.
genuine and he's sincere.
Yep. And that kind of buckets into, as we're looking at influence and how this works, is internal and external influence. So the internal piece, which we've referenced a little bit to, is how do you get things done in your company or within your network? Because the hard line is this. So, at the highest level of responsibility in my career, I was running quality assurance for about a $5 billion company. I had 40 people on my corporate staff. I had over $1 million budget. We had 17 plants, 40 co-packers, right? Immense. A lot of work, a lot of responsibility. I was very honored to do that. But within the company itself, only a small percentage of the people actually reported to me, which means that if I want to get things done in the organization with operations or procurement, R&D, legal, marketing, sales, doesn't matter who, I have to be able to influence and persuade outside of my bubble. And it's not, a lot of times, Elena, you'll see this with quality people, is like, no, here's what the standard says. You have to do this, right? And then you walk away and people are like, what an a-hole. No. And just like that car salesman, it's like, all right, no, they're not doing what I want. I need to do more of that. I need to grit my teeth and get the gray hair like I've got and really get in their face. No, does not work.
I think the best influence is that which is just, where you're inviting them and you want to show them that you care about their needs and their concerns. And again, that you're providing that support and you're there to collaborate and make everybody's life easier.
Yes. Everything in life is an exchange. You're exchanging value for value. So what do they need to do their jobs more effectively? You need to turn that around. And it's not what do I need and want? It's how can I help them get what they want? How can I help them do that? And that's persuasion and negotiating. And sorry to tell you this, guys, the technical sphere of information, microbiology, chemistry, standards, all this type of stuff is a small subset of what we actually do. Your ability to then communicate and engage the rest of the organization to show them why these things are important is how you succeed. If you want to move above the single contributor role in a company and become a supervisor, manager, director, all the way up as high as you can want to go, your technical skills become less and less important.
It's about connecting to people because people are the foundation of every business, and developing those people skills is essential to succeeding in any industry.
Yes. So with internal, some examples here I put in our notes are company policies, employee training, complaint resolution, training and coaching, these type of things. So, for example, one of the companies that I'm working with, I'm thinking about helping them install a document retention policy for the company. Oh, right. That's hard for companies.
Huge.
Hard, right? Within quality, we understand the importance, right? You don't want to keep your documents too long. Number one, it just provides fodder for FDA if they show up. But that applies to the rest of the organization as well. And how long should you hold email? If you ask most people, it's forever. As long as I work here, I'm keeping every single email I ever got. That's
I'm guilty
not a
of
good way
that.
to do things. So the example I like to use in that scenario is Paul Cruz at Bluebell Ice Cream. So he was the CEO of that company with the Listeria recall. He got hauled in front of the court through the Department of Justice under the Park Doctrine to stand trial for those Listeria outbreaks where people got sick and died. But here's the interesting thing that a lot of people don't know, Elena, is that he was not put on trial for the Listeria, for the adulteration of the product. He was put on trial for his emails. He emailed when the recall was starting to go. So they were in Texas. They had a plant in Oklahoma, and that was the next one that got involved in the recall. And he sent an email to his salespeople and said, hey, go to the stores and take our product off the shelves. If people ask you why, don't tell them why. Just tell them we'll get them more product right away. The court interpreted that as conspiracy and fraud. And that's what he was tried on. And he
I
ended
don't
up
know.
having to personally pay a $100,000 fine.
I don't know any other way that could be interpreted, Bryan.
And I like this one here. Yes, yeah, right. What if I need that email from 5 years ago? Has that ever really happened? Has it? No,
Not
no,
yet.
it hasn't. Right. And putting those type of policies in place, and the reason I bring this example up is if I'm going to be successful in that endeavor, number one, it involves the entire company. Number two, that's going to be a whole lot of selling, right? I have to show them why this is to their benefit, why it helps with the organization, why having these policies of retention and destruction in place is a good thing for the company, how it helps protect the company. Just like, if you're using software to protect yourself on your computer from spam and viruses, same type of thing. But that's a very difficult thing. And that's where internal persuasion becomes very important. The other piece of it is external. What what are we doing right here? Right? This is external persuasion. We are talking with people and sharing our message. And this is being done in a win-win way. Hey, we're here to share useful information with you. And hopefully it benefits you. And then you build that relationship with people. Good examples of this. Teaching people within your company or even going to a conference and giving a lecture on the latest FDA guidance document. Conferences are always scrambling and desperate to have speakers come to their conference and talk. And what a golden opportunity to meet people and establish your credibility and show and share your information in a meaningful way with other people in the industry. It's a wonderful tool to help persuade and influence.
That's actually one of my goals, Brian's, as I continue my public speaking and advocacy for food safety. So working towards that.
And you're getting out of that bubble that we tend to
Hmm.
live in companies. Other good examples for external: get involved in trade associations. Um, every industry that you work in, there's a trade association that deals with your products. Who are they? What do they do things? I was very involved back with the Grocery Manufacturers Association, which is now the Consumer CGI, I think is their initials now. But at the time, they were a very technical food group that was lobbying in Washington, and this was when FSMA was being developed. And I was part of a team which included amazing companies like Kellogg's and General Mills and these big companies, and I represented Dean Foods. And we were part of the group that drafted the recommendations to FDA for foreign supplier verification. And so we created what we thought the regulation should say, and then we met with FDA and we would explain to them. And that way we influenced FDA on how they should regulate foreign suppliers. And that was critical, right? To getting them to understand this is, foreign supplier verification is not a check the box thing. It varies, and FDA needs to understand it. And I would like to think that some of those early meetings we had with FDA helped to move them in the direction of, okay, when we go to a facility and look at it, it's more based on the context of that facility and not a checklist, because checklists don't help anybody. So you can influence that way too.
Brian, to that point of the external influence, myself, as all of you know, I am passionate about learning and continuous improvement. So if I'm taking a certification or if I'm reading audit standards, I will take detailed notes, as I know a lot of people would never, even if forced, read audit standards. So for me, it's important to share that knowledge
Mhm.
in a condensed manner with the other leaders that I work with, and I will give them copies of my notes. I'm like, hey, here's the cliff notes or the shortcut to the information you need. So I want us all to understand the importance of why we have these policies or practices in place, or how we align with standards and regulations.
Yeah, that's a good point. And part of this, right, is presenting the information in a digestible manner. Don't hand them the FDA guidance document for enhanced traceability and say, "Hey, here's a 40-page document. You should read through this." Are they going to do that? It's
No.
like the kids say, right? TLDR, too long, didn't read. They're not going to read it. Absolutely not going to read it. Now, Cortland brings out an exception, right, with the document stuff. There's always exceptions. Now, Cortland has a lab, and so he has special duties associated with that. Everybody has different rules. Organic has different rules for record retention. FDA has different rules for record retention. As a general rule of thumb, FDA expects you to keep records for production twice the shelf life. Right. So you need to,
Mhm.
this is why you need these policies and these procedures so the organization understands how long you need to keep things. But that's a good call out, Cortland. So thank you for that.
Very good call out.
Oh, and he reads the inspector's operations manual every night. Okay, well, we expect a
He
full
must
report on your
he
findings.
must sleep like a baby.
Let's see. Food safety standards. Right under the GFSI rules, the standards SQF, BRCGS, all these guys, they have to update their standard every 3 years, which is why we always see updates with these new versions. Right, we're on version 10 now with SQF, and GFSI update their standards, and you have to benchmark. You need to understand those things if you're a food company that falls underneath that scheme. And okay, what do these upcoming changes mean? What new requirements? Oh, there's new stuff for allergens. Okay, well, we need to start thinking about that and organizing within the company. Now, Elena, you hear me rant on this a lot on the chat, which is if you're in charge of quality or quality manager and you have these responsibilities in the company, and you just think that, oh, okay, well, there's new SQF standards out, I need to create new policies and procedures and then distribute those in the organization, and you sit in your office and do that, and then, as I like to say, like Moses coming down the mountain with the laws, right? You're giving them the law. It's not going to work, right? You need
Mhm.
to explain, right? We talk about the why. You need to explain what's coming up and why the organization needs to address this and involve other people. Oh my goodness, really? Yeah.
To the point of SQF, I recently was introduced to the guidance documents. And for anybody who doesn't want to read through the actual standard, it's a shortcut to what are the requirements? How do you meet it? What does it mean? And it's really makes understanding meeting those requirements super simple. So I recommend reading those.
That's a very good point. Thank you. Is part of our role is to translate the regulatory speak into common language that everybody else understands. Hey, here's what this means for us. Right? Here's what this means for our
Yes.
suppliers. Here's what we need to do. So, for example, right now with enhanced traceability, okay, we've got our lingo, we've got our jargon. Pismo 204, and yeah, right. Part of with my clients is we're doing a lot of upfront work so the rest of the organization understands what this means. And what's interesting about that is that the enhanced traceability rules that are coming up are internal and external, because you need to then start partnering with your manufacturers, with your plants, and if you have co-mans especially, is
Mhm.
okay, co-man, here's what's required with enhanced traceability. What are you guys doing? What are your other customers expecting? How are you finding the easiest path forward so that we can do this backwards traceability back to the key data elements? What are you doing? It's not, here's what we mandate you to do, right?
Mhm.
Then somebody else may have found a better and easier way to do it. And that's a perfect opportunity to install those systems and get alignment, right? So you want to get what you need, and you want everybody to agree that, yeah, this is okay, good. Yeah, we need to do this. And that's the second one's harder.
But again, making it digestible, using simple language, not overcomplicating things, and explaining to them the real benefit and the purpose behind those actions.
Yep. And the external piece has um, value that you don't necessarily see right away. So, for example, when I go to conferences or things like this, right, we have this community here, which I love interacting with. But people come up to me and say, "Hey, you're that guy from LinkedIn who does that thing." It's like, yeah, that's me. And then they'll start talking to me about a show that they watched or something like that. You never know how these things work out. And with you being on the chat, and of course, we've had other people on the chat here. Marin has been on the chat, just kind of looking through here, right? So Austin, of course, has been on the chat. Duncan's been on the chat. That's because of the connections that we've made here outside of our normal circle of influence and people that we know. So we're building out that circle, and these things tend to propagate geometrically, right? The more people you know, the bigger it gets, and it just happens. It's kind of weird.
with that building comes the influence and the persuasion, especially to others that are maybe newer in the industry and don't have a lot of that guidance at their in their jobs or at their facilities. This can provide them the information and the inspiration to continue learning and tools to help them in their career.
Yep. And here's a good comment here. Storytelling is a powerful way to educate and inform. Good. What do I do here on the chat? I tell stories. And if you're on the chat as a regular, you're like, okay, I've heard Bryan tell this story before. Repetition is also a good thing. It's not bad. Part of what I always taught my quality managers, Elena, is that if you come and ask me to help resolve a problem and you have some potential ideas of what to do, you should already have a good idea in your mind of what I'm going to say. That's being consistent and being a good leader. And that consistency is what your team needs, right? They're looking at you for that moral guidance associated with what we do, right? We're dealing with people's lives in food safety. We are that cornerstone, and being able to explain these things in stories and relatable ways is very important. You don't influence anybody by saying, well, according to 21 CFR subpart G 117, the requirements relative to GMP require it. No. Okay, great. You showed that you're smart and you memorized the regulations. Great. Good for you.
But again, that requires embracing their ability to problem solve and kind of do their own 5 whys and come to you with a potential solution. So that really shows strong leadership, giving your team members the opportunity to do their job without being micromanaged or constantly criticized.
Good point. And part of this is you don't have to be fancy, right? You don't need a fancy studio with lighting and microphones and all this kind of fancy stuff. Look at what Tim does, right? Sorry, Tim. You kind of give me some grief there, but I'm still going to give you a compliment anyway. Tim just, he's out traveling. He's got his phone with him. He's like, hey, look at this. Here's my hotel room. This is my home food. Like, hey, here's to your point, the cinnamon rolls that my wife made. These are freaking awesome. You don't have to be fancy, and yet you've got to start somewhere. And guess what? You're going to make mistakes. And so this is chat number 216. So I've been doing this now for 4 years. If you go back and look at my original, and so Jose Sabal was my first guest. Very different, right? Very different. The basic format is there, but not as
polished.
I don't want to use the word polished, but it's not as systematized as it is now. How's that?
I'm going to have to go watch the original episodes.
Like, wow, Bryan's gotten really gray in 4 years. Yeah. Let's see, whatever. Right. So just getting out there, right, is fine. To Tim's point, what's the best way for you to connect outside of your normal group? And you need to actually budget time to do that. Right? Part of this is, why is the chat on Friday at the same time every week? Consistency. Right? And hopefully if people then are able to block out an hour to join and they find value, they know when it is. If not, they can watch it later. Because an hour is a lot of time, right? If you're working in a manufacturing facility, an hour is a big investment. And so every now and then I'll mention that in the chat and say, thanks for taking this time, because I recognize just what a commitment that is. An hour is a lot of time. And to then have to focus in on this and understand what's being communicated, and then there's a lot of times follow-up material associated with what we do. It takes effort, right? To go up levels.
Absolutely.
So that's external and internal. Developing your skills is very important. And Scott Adams, who does a live stream on YouTube on persuasion influence, which I highly recommend. It's free every day at 8 a.m. Mountain Time. He's in the Pacific, so 7 a.m. Pacific. And he talks about current events and other issues around politics mainly, but he looks at it through a lens of persuasion and how different people attempt to persuade, right? Because if you're a politician, that's your entire life, is persuading and trying to get your story out there and get people on your side. And he does a really, really good job of talking about that. And he's got some very good books on Amazon as well, too, on these subjects. But around Scott Adams, one of the things, Elena, that he talks about a lot is what he calls a talent stack. Okay, what's a talent stack? A talent stack is your individual set of skills that you have. It's okay. I'm very good at systems. I'm very good at organizing. I am good at writing. I can speak multiple languages. Everybody has a unique talent stack. And that talent stack, the more you have in your talent stack, the more you can do. Imagine Elon Musk's talent stack, right? Oh, insane, right? I build rocket ships. I'm going to Mars. I've created companies. I've created more companies. I have electric car. And he understands all these things. And he still says, hey, you know what? I want to play around with some government stuff here for a while in my spare time. Right? Insane talent stack with that guy, right? You need to figure out what's your talent stack. And a big piece of this is, what am I good at? What do I enjoy? And these talent stacks then can help you identify your calling and what you should be doing. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I think that also kind of relates to when you realize that there are, let's say, gaps in your talent. One of the things that I utilize is I actually have 3 running job searches open at all times. So I'll have one for the current career that I'm in, and that helps me identify areas that I need more experience or certification or skills that I currently don't possess, and I work towards those. And then my second job search will be for that next phase of my career. So for me, it'd be like a senior sanitation manager or director role. And those are the skills that I want to start implementing and building to move forward in my career. And then my third job search will be for my end goal. So for me, that's C-suite or an executive role. And that helps me see that there are stages to growth, and it gives me a roadmap to success.
Yep. And guess what? You're going to have to talk with people to figure out what those things are. So for your example, I would like to become a food safety director at an FDA food company at some point in the future. How do you figure out what you need to do that? Well, guess what? Go talk with food safety directors, right? Hey, tell me about your career. How did you get here? What things did you learn? What mistakes did you make? What skills have you found valuable? That's going to give you really, really good insights. This is a skill set called informational interviewing. Call up people. Hi, my name is Elena. I also work in the food industry, and I've been looking at my career, and I am connected with you on LinkedIn, and I would love to learn more about how you became so successful. Now, imagine if you're on the receiving end of that. It's like, wow, cool. What do people love to talk about? Themselves. And you have just complimented the shit out of them. Now you talk with them and you say, okay, well, yes, here's how my career developed, and here's the skills that I found really critical, and here's the things that really helped me develop, and you should be thinking about these type of things. And that is super valuable. And guess what? You just made a new connection, and that person may say to you, hey, you know, Elena, I know this guy who works with another company, and they're looking for a trainee for the next director in their company. Let me connect you with that person. You never know. You
never know.
So that can help you then figure out, and that's really where kind of our technical skills help a lot too, Elena, is that you're doing a gap assessment of your skill set. What skills do I have? What skills do I need to develop? And how do I start doing that? So for example, I'm a very introverted person. I'm way down on the scale. As far as being locked in your house during COVID, for me, not a big deal. My wife and I will maybe eat out in a restaurant 2 or 3 times a year. If I,
Wow.
Yeah, I like to cook, and so I make all of our food. My wife's a good cook too.
Nice.
I just have a very low need for social interaction. And if you're an introvert, it drains you. But if you're watching this chat, you're probably going, well, that doesn't, no, Brian's not, he's talking and chatting, and he likes to joke around and stuff like that. Yeah. Talent stack. Right?
I would have never guessed that about you, Bryan.
Yeah. I had this conversation one time with the head of R&D for a company, and she was very outgoing, very energetic. We were chatting in her office, and I'm like, well, I'm very introverted, and talking about that. She's like, I am too, and I'm like, nah. She's like, yeah. She's like, this is how I need to do what I need to do in my job. And so this is how I operate at work. She said, look around my office. And I did. And she said, do you see anything personal in this office? Any family pictures, anything? I'm like, no. She's like, yeah, that's my personal life. And that's how she developed that. So with that this is a cautionary tale as well. You can't say, oh, I'm an introvert and therefore I need to do only introverted things. No one is purely one thing. Even me on the far side of the scale, you still have extroverted. It's a continuum, right? So you need to be able to push out into that introverted side, out of that introverted into the extroverted when you need to. And then you can go back. So for example, giving public presentations, I love to give public presentations. The harder part for me is the after, when I'm done with the presentation and a bunch of people come up to talk to you. That's hard because now you're doing the one-on-one. But I'm aware of that. And then you develop through that. So good comments going here. So with that, once you understand what type of skills do I need to build out, is you then need to figure out your plan. And one of the things that I talk about here on the chat as well, Elena, is don't expect HR to do it for you, right? That's not what HR is there for. HR is there to protect the company, right? If there's a creepy sexual harasser in the company causing trouble, it's HR's job to protect the company and get that jerk out of there, right? Get them fired and get them moved out of there. They're there to protect the company. They're there to, and that's why when you look at reviews, when you understand this, it's like, oh, we do reviews so that company has a clear understanding of your capabilities, but more importantly, gaps. And so if, oh yeah, Brian's a pretty good employee, but he tends to be violent and angry. Oh, right. Doesn't matter how good I am at my job. That's a serious problem. Right? And HR, that's their job, is to find out those things and protect the company. So don't forget that. You're responsible for your future. You need to go out and you need to find where those skills need to be developed. So, okay, I don't understand our SQF standard as well as I should. All right, I need to take some courses around that. Okay, I'm not very good at communicating with other groups. I need to reach out and find some courses on influencing or negotiation or other soft skills, right? Soft skills. And that's why Jill and Tia with Catalyst do such a great job. Right? They're focusing on the people side of your skill sets. So you need to always, and I pound on this all the time on the chat, technical and people, right? You have to have both. If you only have one and not the other, your career is not going to go anywhere.
Well, I think they do. Again, I think Jill and Tia do a phenomenal job. And those soft skills, like you said, Brian, are so instrumental to your success and your trajectory in your career. And back to the point of HR not being responsible for outlining your career. I've had friends of mine in other industries. They're like, well, my boss should be outlining my career growth path. I said, that's the job of a mentor. And that's something that you also have to feel within you. You have to be inspired or have this growing desire to reach that level. Some people are, very happy just staying in one role or one particular industry, whereas others want to grow and move beyond different industries or different roles.
Yeah, no, that's a super good point. Is you see this in production facilities especially, right? Is that the numbers don't necessarily matter. It's more the concept. Is the majority, let's say 60% of the plant, like their jobs and they're there for their job. They do well. They execute their duties as are expected, but that's not their focus, right? They have their family. They want to attend their kids' softball games on the weekend. They're fine where they're at, right? They're not pushing, and that's okay. Give them what they need to do their roles. There's another percentage at the top, and we'll call it 20% or whatever it is they want to improve. They want to grow, and those are the important ones. You need to find those people and help them. And you can easily identify them normally by questions. Well, why do we do it this way? Well, I've been thinking about this. Maybe there's a better way to do this, or things like that. And if you shut them down, they're going to leave. They're going to get bored and they're going to leave. You need to give them more responsibility, more opportunities, keep them occupied and help them grow. And that only benefits you. And it's very, very important. Now, at the other end of the spectrum, to finish out our bell curve, are the malcontents. And we know who they are, right? If I'm going into a plant, I can figure out probably within 10, 15 minutes, directly or indirectly, who the troublemakers are. The easiest way is to go out on the floor and talk with people and say, all right, who are the dipshits? And it's like, all right, that guy, that girl, that guy.
I mean,
Everybody knows.
Usually you find them in the break room, the locker room, the parking lot, anywhere they're not supposed to be.
Yeah, they're there to milk the system. They cause trouble, they cause chaos, and they don't care. Now,
Mm,
fortunately, they're a very small percentage of the population within a production facility. But if you're running a department and they're in your department, you need to figure out a way very quickly to help them move on to other opportunities because they're not there for you and to help the company. They're there for themselves. And they will take, to your point, Elena, they'll take every sick day, they'll take every vacation day. And when they get their review, they rate themselves as fives, right? I'm
oh yeah.
superstar employee. And you're sitting there going, you're a two at best, right? And
At best.
oh yeah,
In my career, I've had a few conversations with a few team members, and I'm like, sanitation just isn't for everybody. And
no,
I don't really think that this is a good fit for you, but I wish you well. I mean, please go be somebody else's blessing.
right. And you know you're doing a good job as a manager is number one. You're able to identify and work with people who want to be worked with. And when you have that difficult conversation, they go, "Yeah, you're right. You're right. Thanks. I appreciate working with you, but yeah, I'm gonna do something else." That's a win in that scenario. You don't need to be again, right? That's part of our theme here too. Is don't be a jerk. Right?
Hmm.
Work with them, and maybe there's just something there that's not quite right. You never know, and that's part of this people side of things too. Is well, maybe they're going through a hard time at home. Maybe their spouse is sick. Maybe they're going through a divorce. Maybe they got a troublesome teenage daughter. Who knows, right? And their
Hmm.
problems are spilling over into their work. A little empathy on that side can help too. A lot of this in what we do in food is a lot of our production facilities are in small rural areas, right? If you work in cheese, you're going to Wisconsin, right? You're going up into the woods in Wisconsin. Um, the people who work in the plant a lot of times have known each other their entire lives. And they have history, right? This guy
Yeah.
was married to this lady. She divorced him because she was having an affair with this guy. Now they don't like each other, right? That's part of the dynamic you need to understand.
I think that happens a lot with different companies. Oftentimes, the one family member will start, and then the word gets out. Oh, they've got great benefits, or they've got great starting pay, or great work life balance. And then slowly but surely, all of their friends, their cousins, their neighbors, their family members, they're all kind of interconnected, and that can really be a great thing, or it can cause some problems.
Yeah. Boy, there's some amazing comments coming here. So Maureen is very good at this as well,
It's
and Kim is making
amazing.
some good points. Right, promoting people to be customers. I love that at Kraft. I mentioned this before at White Wave. We had a fantastic saying that our CEO started in the company, which I've kept, which is "Be easy to do business with," and that applies on multiple levels. Right, within your team, with other department heads, for your suppliers, for your customers, for your retailers be easy to do business with. Hey, I had a problem with this product and I need a refund. Oh, well, you need to fill out form 1701-2 and you need to submit it. Right? That's hard to do business with. And that's a good metric to look at things and figure out if that's something you should be doing or not.
Absolutely.
Marine brings up a good comment here that I want to pull up. Is it's amazing how often people complain without offering options toward a solution.
Yeah.
Yep. How many people come to your office and just sit down to complain? And unfortunately, in quality and food safety, I call this the hot potato. Hey, Elena. Yeah, what's up, Bryan? Hey, we found this gasket in one of our lines in the strainer. Part of it's missing. Bye. Right?
That's
And you're
actually
sitting there
one of my
going, what? Yeah.
That's one of my favorite stories from the book, The Gasket Story,
Uh,
and the
yeah.
spheres of responsibility. Yeah.
Yes. It's not my problem, right? Unless you
Hmm.
take it, and that's part of the problem in quality, right? Is we want everything. Oh, I'll fix it. I'll do it, right? And everybody's like, cool. See you later. I'm going to lunch. Have
Well,
fun
and
with
when
my
you're
problem.
when you're always solving everybody else's problems, it doesn't make them invested in the process. They never develop those skills to be able to independently act in a manner that is aligned with your expectations. They just expect you to come in and fix it for them. And that's not leadership. Leadership is teaching them the whys and the how to, and giving them the tools to make those critical decisions when they need to be made.
Yep. And key point on this is, and we see this a lot in what we do, don't try to do this all alone, right? Okay,
Yeah.
I'm going to put together my action plan and my gap assessment and my plan for the year, and I'm going to divide it into quarters. And this is what there's so many ways out there to speed things up. People have done it already. People have already been there, and there's lessons to be learned. Find mentors. Find people who can teach you. That was one of the key critical points in my career that I put in my book as well, is I went out to fill in for a quality manager in a plant. And I had no idea, right? I was a corporate microbiologist, and my boss sent me out to a plant to fill in. I had no idea. And it was brutal. The first day on the job, I went in for a plant manager, like for a management team meeting, and I'm sitting there, and the plant manager, who was a very gruff guy, turned to me and asked for the quality report. And I'm kind of like, we got some stuff, we're doing it. Oh my God, did he lay into me? In front of everybody. He yelled at me for 15 minutes. I don't know why they send idiots like you from corporate out here to the plant who don't know what they're doing. And I don't know why Edith sent you here. What the hell are you doing in my plant? You don't know. It was just like, and I went back to the office and I'm like, okay, I'm going to get fired. I'm totally going to get fired. I'm going to fail, right? So all that doom thinking started kicking in. Oh, my career's over. I haven't even started. I've already failed. Next day, to my forever gratitude, the regional quality manager came through. Fantastic guy. And I'm like, Rick, help. And he's like, okay, I'm going to make you my focus. I'm going to come here every week and I'm going to teach you how to be a quality manager, how to investigate issues, how to work with the other managers, how to do the quality report, what the plant manager needs in the meetings, etc. And he saved my career. He literally saved my career in food safety. And to the point when my temporary period was up and I was going to go back to corporate, the plant manager was like, Bryan, you should stay and be my quality manager. You're doing an amazing job. And he wrote a beautiful letter back to my boss. And she even wrote on it, good job, which for her, that was
Huge.
a compliment of compliments, right? If she said good job, you're like, whoa, okay, cool. And it was all because I was lucky and I found a good mentor.
Mentorship can really make a huge difference in your life, personally and professionally. Myself, I will have multiple mentors at the same time because they're all each related to different skill sets or different portions of where I'm currently at or where I would like to go in the future.
Yep. The other piece of this then too, and this kind of dovetails into the other one, is think about people who model good skills at presentation. Who are those people that you would like to model? Right? Scott Adams with persuasion, Tony Robbins. There's all these different people out there, and it doesn't have to be industry specific. Sitting above my desk here, I have books on persuasion and different topics from all kinds of critical books in my career that I keep, and I pull them out every now and then for these types of skills. And who are those people that you want to model? Who are those people that you want to work with? Who can help you fill in those gaps? They'll help you identify gaps. If you have a consulting business like I do, okay, fine. I know all the technical stuff, but the sales and marketing stuff, that's not my background, right? That's a gap. And if you're going to be successful, you have to get good at that stuff. And what you have to find mentors and you have to find information from people who are good at that and learn from them and be humble about it.
I think it's great when you can emulate other people that are successful in ways that you want and desire to achieve. And emulating them doesn't mean doing a copy and paste, but taking those fine-tuned skills and then making them your own or implementing them in your own way. So I think it's a wonderful sign of flattery, and a lot of people, will even help share with you different information, whether it's websites or places to get certifications or different type of technical equipment. So it's always great to reach out to people.
Yes. And remember, don't focus too much on the technical side. Don't don't collect all kinds of certifications thinking that that's how you get to the next stage in your career. That's important, but that's not going to get you promoted. Cortland made a very good comment in here earlier that I want to make sure, because this is maybe the younger people don't know. Zig Ziglar, what's that? Is that like a rolling paper for marijuana? What is that? No. Zig Ziglar is a motivational speaker who was extremely popular in 1990s, 2000, 2010. He's since passed away. Man, that guy can teach you a lot. He focuses on sales, but guess what? You're a salesperson. If you want to move your programs and processes forward in your company, you have to sell them.
To that point, that reminds me of Og Mandino, the greatest salesman in the world, Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. I remember reading that book when I was like maybe 20, and I had a lot of friends in sales, and they were like, if you want to be influential, this is the book you read. And it really did create a foundation for how I perceived interactions and connecting with people on a personal and professional basis.
Yes. And fortunately for me, in my college time, I came across some of these sources. So I learned about Tony Robbins and bought his Personal Power series on cassette tape at the time. And I still have my notes back from that when I wrote in that book of, these different skills. And I credit a lot of my success in my life to learning those skills. Super important. And so Asia. Yep. So Teja, don't wait until you have arrived to give back. Yes, absolutely. You can help people at any different stage. And we're seeing it here in the chat, which is amazing. So one of the things in the chat, Elena, that newbie guests on the chat find out is that the time goes by really fast.
Very fast.
And with that, with all these amazing comments, we're at the 5-minute mark already. So as we kind of bring this up to the 30,000 foot level, what would you like to leave people with today?
Well, as I had promised in the advertisement for today's episode, sharing tips and tricks to help you become more influential in your personal and professional career, I have copied a link or placed a link in my LinkedIn profile to my speech on social media networking and LinkedIn best practices. So it'll give you a step-by-step guide of how to add curb appeal to your LinkedIn profile and tools to help you network and grow your connections personally and professionally. So please feel free to visit my page. Send me, if we're not already connected, please send me a request to connect. I'm always excited to get new connections and grow my networking. Additionally, I would like to mention, if anybody's interested in joining a meeting of my Super Communicators Club or interested in leadership development through public speaking, please send me a message on LinkedIn and I will send you an invitation to one of our meetings. And last but not least, I would like to mention the book giveaway that my co-founder Michelle Wolzian and I have created to help support food safety leaders and food safety professionals in our communities. So it is free. There's absolutely no charge. It is something that Michelle and I both personally financially sponsor. Our current program is we give away 6 books every year. And if you are interested in winning this month's book, please send a personal message to Michelle or I on LinkedIn telling us why this book will benefit you or what led you into food safety or leadership. And then we read through the responses and we pick the best winner and then we mail out your personal copy. So we're looking to partner with other colleges. Currently, Louisiana State University features our book giveaway in their student monthly newsletter. So if any of you have alma maters, please consider recommending us.
Yeah, and I think it deserves an applause. Here, let's try this.
Thank you.
So for convenience sake here as well, I'm including the link here in the chat. So this is Elena's profile on LinkedIn. So you can go directly there from here and check that out after the chat is done. And if you're looking for someone to help model, got a good one right here. Got a good one right there. So Elena is always willing to help, and that's what makes it so cool. And what we do in QA and food safety is we're building this community, and we're getting out of our bubbles, and we're helping each other and we're protecting the public. And that's what it's all about. And that's what makes sleeping at night easy for us. Even though, as Jacqueline says here, right, cassette tapes. Yeah, cassette tapes. I was kind of on the back end of 8-tracks, like Cortland's mentioning. I hated 8-tracks. They never quite worked quite right, and they would squeak sometimes, and I didn't like 8-tracks. So I was happy when cassettes came along. And then, of course, then CDs, and everybody. I saw a joke on this on X, where somebody's like, that's why Generation X is so mad, is because we had to go through all these music transitions. So you had your records, 8-track, cassettes, right? So we would buy all our cassettes, and it's like, no, now it's CDs. You're like, oh, and then you go to CDs, and then it's like, no, everything's online.
MP3s.
Stick to a format.
I want to thank all of our friends for joining us today. I really feel like we're one big family, and it's just great when we all get together. That's one of the things I love about our industry is we don't compete, we support and inspire.
Well said. And with that, we'll close out our chat here for this week. Thank you, everybody. Amazing comments. I love it. And of course, back here next week, same time, 8 a.m. Mountain Time, 10 a.m. Eastern on LinkedIn and YouTube, where I'll bring another amazing guest like Elena on the chat to talk with you and help increase everybody's food safety and influence within our industry. So in the meantime, have a good weekend. Enjoy yourself. And actually, I'm doing a little bit of external stuff tomorrow. I'm going to a basketball game. So I'm kind of getting out of my bubble here too. So see how that goes. Yeah, it'll be fun. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you then. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.